I love his patience here. You can just see that, like, okay. All right, Ben. Let's do this, Ben. We're gonna do it. All right. I'm gonna play this. It's Neil deGrasse Tyson's thoughts on transgenderism with Ben Shapiro. Mostly because I've heard that Ben Shapiro got absolutely wrecked in this conversation. So I'm curious to see this. I know Neil deGrasse Tyson is incredibly problematic. I know that he has very prominent accusations against him. I'm not going to venerate the man who I once used to venerate. All right, he was everyone's surrogate daddy for a long time, and I too, I loved my Neil deGrasse Tyson, but I'm still here. I'm still here for this. Problematic how he's had a number of accusations against him that have kind of come and fizzled away multiple times. But anyways, let's see this conversation.
Is militating against the advent of science. One of those areas is the area of transgenderism. The argument that is typically made by gender theorists is that gender is...
Why are you saying transgenderism?
Entirely separate from sex. You've seen the argument made that it makes no difference on average if men are stronger than women are, and that if we were to allow transgender women to compete with non-transgender women, then this would somehow not disadvantage biological women. And this seems to me absolutely ascientific, that if we're actually going to have a discussion about gender and sex, that should be based in data, which suggests that mammals are in fact binary in terms of their sex, unless you have intersex birth defects typically, or genetic defects.
I'm happy to opine on this.
Intersex people are birth defects? That is gnarly even for Ben Shapiro.
This only matters because today we segregate nearly all sports by gender. Otherwise, why do you even give a shit? what someone identifies with? We live in a free country, and with consenting adults and people free expression of who and what they are.
I mean, on an adult level, I agree with you. I think it does matter what you teach your children.
That's what I'm saying. And so there's the matrix of what you are biologically, how you express yourself, who you choose as a sexual partner. If we actually live in a free country, as we tell ourselves, people's freedom to behave in any of those ways should not concern you at all. Nor are they requiring that you behave that way.
See, this is something, I've talked about this before, how the left has to become much stronger at reframing arguments, especially when it comes to a number of topics that are highly controversial. So, for example, one of the topics would be abortion. And always the right likes to clutch their pearls and say, well, this is about the unborn babies. All right, this is about the ghost babies, and I care deeply about ghost babies. So every unborn child that dies, reframe the argument immediately and be like, hey, by the way, what we should be talking about is bodily autonomy. That's what this really comes down to. And you are trying to impose upon women something, and trans men as well, something of which they are going to have forced births at the hand of the state. You're trying to enforce them against their will to have to do something that they don't want to do against their own bodily autonomy. That's how you should reframe the argument. And the same thing goes for this. Talk about freedoms, all right? Talk about how this is going to infringe on their freedoms at the end of the day.
Okay, this is for their own freedoms, because we live in a free country. Now,
Homeless Ranger
what is
92,
unresolved here is, what do you do with sports? It's unresolved. And I've followed that closely, and I don't see any meaningful solutions to come down on.
Yes, I brought it up at the start of the segment.
We know that hormones manifest differently in different people, and just the whole thing with steroids. Steroids are hormones, right? And we rallied against steroids in professional sports because it gives you an undue advantage. So I've tried to think of what the future of sports would be. in the world of a gender spectrum. And it may be, you don't specify whether it's a male or female sport. You just take measurements of what your hormonal balances are. And so you compete based on your hormones. I mean, this is thought I had. I mean, I don't know. I don't know where it's going to land.
The WNBA won't be.
Ben Shapiro cannot process error 101. He's like, hey, I'm not going to entertain this.
Be in business for very long if that's the case.
It would just be you'd have to find some way to compete people against each other if you still care that sport.
Oh, sorry, nerds. Did I not drop the right one? Sorry, 404. Yeah, website not found. Sorry. Oh, called out again. Didn't drop the right error code.
I guess the area where it does come up in a non-sports area.
Yeah, tell me, 'cause I don't know.
So it would be, you talk in your book about the education of children and teaching children about science. And right now, children are being taught about the quote-unquote gender spectrum, which is not scientifically based. That is a theory-based
This is a software
idea.
engineer. You
No,
heard
no,
me.
wait, hold on.
I deeply apologize.
People express themselves on a spectrum. So you learn that.
That's
I don't
that's a social point, not a scientific point.
It's
meaning we express ourselves.
Hold on.
I gotta bring up what Chad is already pointing out. Why you don't need a 1 foot set, you know? Like when I would sit down for this interview, I would be like, my dude, you know we've had wide angle lenses for a while. We don't need to. It doesn't need to be like this. Like I love breathing in your air as much as the next guy, but come on, we have the technology, Ben.
Meaning we express ourselves
hold on.
based in different languages. Is that something you teach in science class, or is that something that you teach when you're teaching language?
So whether the fact that people want to express themselves on a spectrum, on a gender spectrum, whether that fact is something you want to put in a sociology class or in a science class, maybe that remains to be determined. But it is a real fact about real society.
Well, of course, nobody's denying that people identify how they want to identify.
So
the question is, what is the relationship of that to biology? Meaning that the argument is made that trans women are women, for example. And what that seems to mean is that trans women...
I love his patience here. You can just see that, like... Okay. All right, Ben. Let's do this, Ben. We're going to do it.
Are identical to women. Now, if people want to say trans women are not biological women, obviously that is the case. But people don't seem to want to say that, although that is obviously scientifically true. Trans women are not biological women. Biological women are biological women.
But where are you going with this? What are you trying to accomplish by asking yourself, is it science or is it not science? It's people in society.
But this is a perfect example of an area where suddenly it doesn't matter to say things that are just true. Like, why is it bad or wrong to point out?
This is so refreshing, by the way, for a number of reasons. But one of the biggest ones being that, what are you accomplishing or trying to accomplish by vilifying people? Because that's what you do. This is kind of like your full-time gig, right? Like, you're just trying to say, like, I am a rational man based entirely in science, even though I don't really accept the science. But at the same time, why can't we just establish there's biological women? Can you not say that to me now, Professor?
I have another way to approach this. I care what is objectively true in the world as a scientist. But let me not say even as a scientist. I just simply care what is objectively true. And science happens to be a pretty potent path to invoke, to find out what is true. And so if people express themselves on a gender spectrum, and that is an actual thing in an actual society, if we have not fully explained that scientifically, that's an interesting frontier to study. If you want to say it's only sociological, then it's the purview of the social sciences. I don't care who studies it. It's an interest.
Ben does. Ben does not believe in the social sciences. We've known this for a while.
Interesting fact about society that's worth learning about. To fight someone and say it's not biological, it's just your this. It's real and it's there.
Well,
because it's real because it manifests.
But it is real because it manifests. But the question of how to classify manifestation is a scientific question, meaning that, for example, there was a woman over at Brown University. She came out with a study that suggested that there was a phenomenon called rapid onset gender dysphoria, in which a member of a particular group would suffer from gender dysphoria, and this person's immediate peer group would suddenly have an onset of gender dysphoria. This paper was so controversial that Brown tried to pull it, and then was forced to reassign it later. You see this sort of treatment.
That's a different question. What you're asking now is, are there some topics that should not be studied scientifically?
Right.
And is there some taboo? And Sam Harris speaks a lot about this.
Yes.
And I think the concern is, if you study some topic that's a hot button topic and you bring scientific methods and tools to it, we don't trust, I'm interpreting here, I think we as a society don't trust that people in charge in a free country won't try to legislate something that will constrict people's freedoms in the face of that information. I think that's the fear.
Well, isn't that...
It's a fear.
I mean, and isn't that...
We don't trust our own ability to govern ourselves in the face of what could be some information relative to other kinds of information.
Isn't that a bit of a problem?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it's not. It means it's not a free society. It's not a society of free inquiry, which I think you need ultimately. But yeah.
My general take on all of this stuff, from climate change to gender dysphoria to all of these issues, is bring out the science and then let's hash it out. I think that the problem I'm seeing...
Rapid onset gender dysphoria controversy. Rapid onset gender dysphoria is a controversially proposed, socially meditated subtype of gender dysphoria. Brown University School of Public Health assistant professor Lisa Littman created the term to describe surveyed parents' accounts of their teenage children suddenly manifesting symptoms of gender dysphoria and self-identifying as transgender simultaneously with other children in their peer group. Littman speculated that rapid onset gender dysphoria could be a social coping mechanism for other disorders. It is not recognized by any major professional association, with Littman noting that it is not formal mental health diagnosis at this time. Littman published a descriptive study in the PLOS-1 in August 2018. Criticism was voiced by transgender activists, and 2 weeks after the publication, PLOS-1 responded by announcing a post-publication review of the paper. On the same day, PLOS-1 announced its post-publication review. Brown University retracted its press release promoting the study. The controversy grew as articles and opinion pieces, both critical and supportive, were published in the mainstream media, discussing concerns about the study's methodology and the validity of its hypothesis, as well as issues of academic freedom. In March 2019, the journal concluded its review and published Littman's revised and corrected version. Other studies have since remarked on such an increased incidence of youth seeking care for dysphoria, the cause of which remains to be established. I would posit, and it's completely unscientific, mostly like Littman and this paper, that a lot of it has to do with societal acceptance of both trans people and the idea of gender dysphoria was probably leading to an increase in people having an openness to seek out information on the subject. That would be my completely unscientific hypothesis. But this seems to be an example of someone proposing something that, of course, was not, quote, a formal mental health diagnosis at this time. And then under scrutiny, which is what you're supposed to do in academia, it didn't hold up, and then they had to issue a correction. Not that they were being censored in any way, but of course the right jumped on this as soon as they could, because like anything even closely related to this is like, oh my God, delicious, sweet meat on the bone. We have it. We got him.
A lot of sizes.
What is your motivation?
Why? Right? Why does that matter?
It matters because if you have political power, you could end.
The paper also looked specifically for parents upset their kids were trans that didn't talk to the actual trans people. Oh, great. Well, that's scientific. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's talk to parents. Let's only ask the parents and none of the trans individuals. Sounds great.
Creating legislation that subtracts freedoms from people who previously were enjoying the same freedoms as you. The history of that exercise
then make a better argument.
Doesn't end well.
Well, but the history of which exercise? Bring out all the science and let's hash it out?
I'm saying if you bring out all the science and the politicians hash it out, The history of that exercise is a recipe for disaster if it involves discoveries that put people's freedom as defined in our Constitution at risk.
But now,
Then make a better argument than the one I'm proposing, which, of course, is not based on any factual evidence whatsoever on a topic that I've spent my career vilifying.
you're arguing for limitations on areas of particular study.
No, I'm arguing on we need a way to shield, we need a way to protect people's freedoms in the face of whatever gets discovered scientifically.
So
I agree.
I think that's what the Constitution is for, is to guard rights from.
But we're always fighting people who want rights are always fighting others who are saying they don't get the rights from the Constitution. This is a daily challenge on the progressive left. It is a daily challenge, right? Here's an example. I forgot how I ended up getting this phone call. It was some magazine that serves the gay community. And they want, I remember why, because they wanted my opinion on, they wanted my opinion about whether being gay was biological or mental.
Right, there's that new study that came out, this vast
or
study.
Psychological.
Right,
okay?
Right.
And I said, I don't care which it is. Find out what it is, fine. But the answer to that question should have no consequence on legislations or laws. Because, for example, suppose it said it's purely biological, okay? Then you say, oh, that explains it. Suppose it says it's purely psychological. What are you going to do now? You say, well, now you're going to go to the reorientation camps or whatever those are called, where they realign you because they say it's psychological rather than biological. All of a sudden, people start behaving in ways in society that want to constrict the freedom of expression of who and what people are. And that is a danger. So maybe there needs to be a line in the sand. Let science do what it does, but politicians keep us free. Yet there's so many politicians that are doing the opposite of that.
So why aren't you a libertarian? I mean,
that scares me.
I'm a libertarian. Come over here. Just
okay.
That's your takeaway from all of this. Oh man, he just destroyed your entire worldview in front of you in real time in 10 minutes. In 10 minutes or less. And your takeaway from all of that is, you're a libertarian, aren't you? Like, come over to my side where I like to oppress people. We oppress everyone, but we're for not treading upon. Yeah, no, that's what we believe, ultimately. Hey, 30,000 upvotes. Nice. We've officially reached the point where even the scientists are scared to acknowledge blatant truths and navigate taboo topics. I couldn't believe my ears listening to this. Ben, the supposed libertarian, arguing points that support restricting the freedom of others. Wow. Based. This was a thumbs up. Shapiro couldn't refute anything. Neil turns out to be more libertarian than authoritarian Ben over here. Bro, Neil isn't throwing away science to center to the left. His argument is that science shouldn't be politicized to dictate the rights of people by politicians. Oh, this is just beautiful. Look at these top upvoted comments. Lamau, Ben couldn't even respond in the end. He had to laugh it off and try somehow to save face. What a joke. Neil deGrasse Tyson doing his best not to get canceled by the left. No, quite the opposite. The virgin fake libertarian Ben versus the Chad freedom-loving red-blooded Neil. LOL at all the scientifically illiterate people completely misinterpreting Neil as being scared to address the topic. This is insane. Ben literally didn't defend any of his talking points even remotely well, and his fans are still acting like he didn't get murdered here. Poor Neil kept aside whether to be a scientist or a politician. Love how Ben posted the video of him getting destroyed by Neil deGrasse Tyson. Man. Huh. I thought Neil deGrasse was against corporal punishment because he just murdered someone live on camera. And Shapiro'd. Do you want movies and Serfs watching the movies? So then come over to the new channels. It's the Serfs cinema. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Can you do the thing, that thumbs up and comment and all those things that help us out in the algorithm that controls every aspect of our lives? Also, if you happen to have a Facebook account, can you delete it? Like just delete it. You should probably delete your Facebook account because It's not a great company. But hey, if you can't do that for whatever reason, I understand. And could you also go to facebook.com/thesurftimes then and give us a little like and a follow. We're just trying to push back against the fact that people like Ben Shapiro happen to dominate the platform entirely. And when everyone asks, why do older generations believe the things they believe? One of the problems is the majority of them on social media use Facebook. So to counter that, we're just going to be on there too now. Also, if you happen to have a union or a worker co-op or even a leftist project, podcast, website, Zoom, MySpace, it doesn't matter. We will advertise it for free on this channel. All you got to do is go to weareserfs.com and use the forms that we got there, weareserfs.com. Thanks, everybody.
To our wonderful gods, Xander Corvus, VK Jehannam, T. Grow, and Peyton L. Just, may you smite all of our enemies. To our monarchs, Tom Spiker and the Tim Caucus, we are your humble servants, ready to do all your bidding. To our lords, Evan Nudie, Trevor R., Alexander Thaler, Ryan Lubin, and Jeff Lamb, we shall proudly carry your banner on the online battlefield. To our Knights of the Round Table, Val 9000, Jenna Tal, Dark Puppy, Quiet 185, Anna Loves Riley, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, Multimondi, Trevor Janis, Lemmy 101, Anthropophojack, Saren 42, Chronic the Hemphog, Phone Jenny, Radical Maniac, Ramon Acosta, Jimmy Big Nuts, Violent Orchard, Sophie Baby, Political Puppy, Andreas Chiringuito, Zach Christensen, Yopi, Josh Mickelson, Todd Buckingham, and Todd Lajeunesse. We raise our glass and we raise our swords and we salute you.